What's going on, everybody? Doc from Average Gamer, guys, back yet again. This time a little more Halo Wars 2. We're talking some 2v2 deathmatch. We're going to be playing as Forge today. And what I wanted to do here is, I am by no means an expert, especially on a lot of these multiplayer types. Really enjoy the Blitz mode. These games are a little bit hard to record because sometimes they run pretty long. But what I did want to do is talk through some of my basic strategies for deathmatch. I think you can apply these probably as well in domination, strongholds, maybe not so much, but just because a lot of the strategies for me are going to be kind of base build specific. So we'll jump right into this, but these are going to be very basic tips. So I do like playing as Forge for right there. You see his economy leader power. That's the first point I always spend. And my basic build is always supply pad, reactor or generator, excuse me, another supply pad, and then I'm just trying to boost up and get to a second generator. I like the 2 and 2 setup because for me, I'm not much of a rush player. So you're going to see I kind of go kind of a mid route. I prefer kind of a Marines plus air unit setup, whether that be Hornets, and then I think later on into this game I actually expand in and get into Vultures. By all means, you can do the rush strategies. It's clearly part of the game. It's just not really how I like to play. And if you get countered on a rush, a lot of times you're at a pretty significant disadvantage. So if they can sense the rush coming and they kind of play for it, especially that way, you can really find yourself behind, especially in a 2v2 game. If one player gets a couple bases knocked out, it's going to be pretty hard for the other player to kind of pick up the slack and still end up winning that game. So another one of my just very basic tips up front, again, just off of that build, is make another set of Marines and go and try and capture one, if you can, of the generators around the map. I've found that 3 Marines works great. Have them just target the units right away. Don't have them actually try to capture. Micromanage these guys a little bit. Have them shoot the air units and these little aggressor sentinels. They should take them out with no problem. And then you can go in and start capping this. And having one of these early along with your generators, for me, lets me do a lot of my upgrades and power-ups right away. So I'm trying to upgrade both the supply pads and the generators as quickly as I can. I do build in another supply pad, and then from here what I'm looking to do is start a little bit of expansion, pick up a second base, as well as start cranking out just a few Marines and a scout unit just to kind of see what's going on, give myself a little bit of defense, but really I'm just trying to collect power so that I can start getting to the armory and start really kind of powering up both the leader as well as advanced logistics for me. So you'll see me kind of move around here. I'm just going to again use these sets of Marines. I'm going to pick up a few of the different supplies around here. I think about grabbing this, and I actually might. I can't remember. I pre-recorded this one, so no, I don't. I go grab supplies. I wait for a few more Marines to come in. Just grabbing a few things around the map. In deathmatch, again, it's going to take a couple minutes for them to set up for a rush anyways. I do recommend right up front, and I don't do it here, but I do recommend putting 1 or 2 turrets down. You can see I have plenty of supplies at this point, and that is the one great thing for me personally about Forge, is because, again, you hit that rolling economy. He's going to be picking stuff up very quickly, which is really nice. I do like to get a second base going, which is kind of what I'm moving those Marines over there to do. Because again, for me, I like to really get the upgrades going because I try to play more of a mid to later game strategy where my forces are just so much better. They're just kind of dominant. I do like to send units to do a little bit of scouting, and again, I'm taking that second leader power for Forge, and this is kind of Forge specific because obviously all the leader powers are different. My base builds will remain the same though. I'm going to send my scout unit over just to see what they kind of got building. I do like grabbing mini bases as well, although I do try to get to a standard base first, at least my personal opinion. It does cost you a little bit more supplies, energy, but getting that thing set up and then getting it upgraded once makes it pretty tough to take down, to be really honest. So now I'm going to move forward. I am going to try to grab this second generator. These guys don't seem to be rushing. I saw the one guy, he's making quite a few Marines, so I'm going to be prepared for that. And that's where I kind of determine I'm going to go the air side. Now, obviously, air units generally don't fare as well against, your infantry counterparts. But that's why I'm going to end up balancing my forces here a little bit. I'll get Forge's Warthog out, and then I'll just crank some Marines, some Hornets, and then eventually some Vultures. And then again, once you can get to the point where you're actually upgrading, giving your air units, their additional levels, they're going to have so much more health and so much better capabilities that you really should be able to kind of outmatch whatever they do bring to the ground. Now, again, while you see me here, I'm just, again, creating more supplies. I'm very big on the supply generation. Get as many supplies as you can going. Here, I have upgraded my Marines, which is something that I always recommend everyone do. If you can, you're going to see me use the grenade throw here, because my bases, again, I'm really just kind of on autopilot here, just trying to get supplies going, get some things upgraded. I don't have a huge army, but the fact that I upgraded these few sets of Marines, and the same Marines have been moving around killing those aggressor sentinels, gives them a little bit of extra veteran level, and ends up taking out a group that's a little bit bigger. And again, the grenade throw is really good. I do like it, and if you are going to run with Marines and use them as part of your army, I definitely recommend getting them leveled up and honestly getting them to the point where they can heal and have the rocket launcher is hugely beneficial. Now here you'll see me, I'm dropping in some turrets onto that base, because that's obviously the first base they're going to run into. And then here I start looking at, what do I want to do? Advanced logistics for me is the most important right up front, because it allows you to pump a lot of stuff out. The other thing I like doing here, and why I like running kind of a Marine and Hornet setup, is because neither of those units take any energy to build. So I can use my energy 100% to allow me to power my units up, and then I'm still cranking out units, some pretty good units to be honest, with that set. Good units that'll be kind of versatile and be able to attack a little bit of everything. I probably make a mistake here. I don't actually think I did that. I do want to get to headquarters level 3 as quickly as I can, because I do want to have all of the capability to unlock. And here you see just one single air pad, just going to start cranking units, and again using that energy to kind of keep things balanced, level up really as much as I can. And again, this is why I like Forge. This is one thing they've talked about nerfing. His rolling economy power does allow him to get out pretty far ahead, and a lot of times when you see people play this, you should be kind of expecting maybe a little bit of a rush, whether it be scout rush or a Marine rush. Besides that, I think they've done a decent job of balancing this, so it takes a little while to make the bigger units like we used to see as far as tank rushes and things like that. One other key player that you really want to look out for, in my opinion, is going to be Anders, and we've talked about this too in the update, that this is something they're looking at as far as the Sentinel nerfs. I played another game after this where I saw a huge Sentinel rush, and honestly I was able to repel it. I was playing as Decimus. I think he was a weekly challenge for me. I simply just built the base, ended up putting a cloaking generator on it, made like 6 Reavers, sat them inside the base when his Sentinels came flying around because they didn't have anything to detect. My Reavers absolutely ripped those Sentinels apart. Now, my teammates had already quit at that point because they had gotten destroyed, so I kind of had a little bit extra time to prepare. But again, I was able to repel that rush with one single unit, one single type of unit, and not very many of them. So just kind of keep that in mind. Again, that's a basic tip. If scout well, scout often, build a couple scout vehicles, whether it be jackrabbits, ghosts, whatever you want to do, and just kind of try to see the composition of the army. A lot of people will move around, pick up other bases, try to grab the energy points, so that's a good chance for you to kind of go and scope out to see what they have. And again, just basic tips here. Always try to fight for those energy generators, especially in deathmatch, and just kind of pick what you want to do. I personally think a balanced army is the best. you're going to see me here with Hornets, Forge's Warthog, Marines, and then eventually a few Vultures here at the end. I really don't face too much problems. They do start to go in. They start to make some units that would honestly concern me a little bit, but having Forge's Warthog here, going hero to hero, managing this small army, capitalizing on hitting the Spartan, and then a decent scatter bomb. That's another reason I like Forge. I do like scatter bomb. It's kind of hard to get away from. It does a decent amount of damage as well. You see me here, we get some pretty good fights, but because I can kind of manage these small fights, do decently well, generally kind of win. This one I kind of lose, to be honest with you, but having a little bit of reinforcement there, and Forge's Warthog, honestly, he is pretty good. Having that capability there, bringing in some extra support from the Marines, and at this point I think I just hit, so they get their rocket launchers as well, which is nice. If you can manage those small fights, at least initially, and this guy's using the scatter bomb against me, but if you can manage those small fights initially, and you have that, idea of continually trying to upgrade and improve your units, and make it so that you're picking up, the higher tier upgrades, especially getting specific unit types leveled up, getting your bases leveled up, and then using your armory to get your heroes leveled up. I really do think you can make a nice balanced army composition that's hard to deal with in kind of the mid to late game. This game ends up running me about 20 minutes, which is actually pretty good. It's pretty fast for a 2v2, so I was happy with that. We had some good success. My teammate did good. He kind of ran kind of a similar army composition to me. I think he went a little bit more Marine heavy, and ends up putting some decent pressure. So again, some basic tips. I'm by no means the best at this game mode. I will 100% admit that. I think I have about a 30% win rate, which is actually not very good, but that does include some of the stuff we saw at the beginning of the game, with some just crazy lag outs counting as losses and things like that. But again, just wanted to provide some basic tips because some of you guys have been asking for it. That's generally my basic build. Again, supply pad, generator, supply pad, generator, another supply pad, look for a second base, and then try to get armory and the air pad up, for me at least playing Forge. And typically that's pretty average for me as far as UNSC. Again, depending on what I see as far as what they're scouting out. Once I get that second base, again, I do a lot of the same. I do supplies really up front, and then I'll kind of diversify a little bit there, maybe make a barracks or go with a garage a lot of times. And then a lot of the energy that I'm spending is just through the armory. Get the hero unit out because you can, they don't count against your population. You make a ton of them, but also because leveled up, if you level them up pretty quickly and efficiently, you're actually going to see some pretty good results. And if you manage them well, you'll end up being able to pick up, some fights, at least do well in some fights. And again, if you can manage those small fights, and your teammate, especially if you're playing in 2s or 3s, and your teammates do a decent job of putting some pressure on some of the enemy bases, helping you out with some of the fights, you really shouldn't have too much issues, and you'll find some pretty good success with that. So now here at this point, again, he's doing a good job. I'm trying to help him out with leader powers. Leader powers, I'll say this, use those wisely. I see people sometimes use them on probably too small of occasions, especially early on in the game. I'm all for using them to again, win some fights, but I think you need to be a little bit more selective than I can see sometimes that people use. Also, kind of a side note, just make sure, for me, again, I mentioned it earlier, trying to get to headquarters level 3 is one of my big things. But at this point, you can see I've got a decent little army. I've got 4 vultures there, a couple hornets, some marines, Forge's Warthog in there. This is a pretty balanced, pretty good army. Again, this is kind of a composition that I like. That's hard to deal with. It is a little heavy in the air, but then your marines leveled up with your grenade launcher or your rocket launcher ability can do some good damage. Your vultures, I actually prefer having vultures over honestly, like your condors. Condors take a while, even with advanced logistics. all the way leveled up, and two, they can target multiple units and really pump some stuff out and get some good damage in. But I just prefer to have multiple vultures. You can kind of selectively use their Y Phoenix missile ability. So I just see a little bit more versatility, and then again, having more units that have to get targeted, I think seems to play in your favor. So here again, at this point, we'll start fast forwarding here in just a minute or so, because we're kind of on cruise autopilot at this point. We've got a good army built up. I like to kind of split my army in two, provide a little bit of a back army where I'm still building up, place it in kind of my most forward base just out front, a little bit as base defense, but also as kind of a reserve force. Here I'm just doing the base fortifications. I'm looking around, making sure I'm getting air units up to level 2. I'm going to key up some vultures. But I also like to go, when I destroy a base, I prefer to sit around it for the few seconds that it takes and build on that plot. And what that allows me to do, a few things. One, you can kind of squeeze the enemy out if you kind of make a methodical push across the map. I send a few Marines around, we're grabbing some different bases. At this point, we're just kind of spamming leader powers, and again, my army here really does a nice job of kind of knocking things out. I will kind of build up as my army fights, but really you want to kind of micromanage whatever your main force that's fighting. At this point, this guy does a nice job of trying to make the counter unit, but again, having some decent balance between Marines and air units, we end up taking out his Wolverine army. I end up trying to build on that base, and there we go. We get a nice, pretty easy victory. So again, just want to provide a little bit of gameplay, some of my very basic tips for those of you trying to get into this mode, trying to hopefully find some success, and hopefully again you can take a few things from me. I do like Forge, but I do like a lot of the UNSC leaders. As far as the Banish side, honestly, the capability to go cloaked for your bases is really neat. So I think I'll look at doing another video maybe from their perspective, at least with my favorite. I do like Shipmaster and a few different types of the game modes because of his leader, but that's just the kind of the way it sets up. So hopefully you guys found this one useful. Again, if you have better, more specific tips, again, we can talk the rushes. You can absolutely do that if you want to, but for most of us that might not be familiar with that tactic or understand that if you shut down the rush, you put yourself in somewhat of a bad position sometimes. Just kind of want to throw this out there as some basic tips. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, please let me know down in the comments. If there's anything else, kind of basic tips or maybe a little bit more advanced tips that you guys find success with, feel free, throw it down below. You know we're all about the community here. We want to make each other better and talk specifically what you can do better. But hopefully you got to see a little bit of the gameplay, a nice little victory from me here, just rocking some random 2v2s and having some good time. So just put up, or going up at about the same time as another video talking about XP. Please go check that out. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and we also have the Average Gamer Guys Xbox Club. Feel free to join that. We'll get some discussion going, and hopefully in the future, like me and Saw said, play with you guys a little bit. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I've been Doc from Average Gamer Guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll check you next time.